Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is a film that came out earlier this year. I actually haven't seen this film at all yet. The director here, Rhys Flake Waterfield, has taken advantage of copyright laws. Winnie the Pooh, the character, being in the public domain means anyone can make a story about Winnie the Pooh, and he's actually decided to make a horror film out of it. And the most fascinating aspect of this production really is its low budget with its high box office ratio. So really, it's the question of how did a director with such a low budget reinterpret and redesign a character for horror genre. So we're going to jump into the first scene, first shot, and see really how Rhys here decides to open his film.
Sells as owl, rabbit, Eeyore, piglet, and most importantly, Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, cool. So it's an animation that is, quite unexpected, to be fair. And I think when you're on a budget, having a really expensive opening like this one here, it gives like this impression to the audience that there is some kind of production value behind the project. We often associate animation being quite expensive and time consuming. So really the director has poured a lot of his budget into making an animation and hooking the audience with this opening here. And I guess we're quite familiar with Winnie the Pooh being this animation, flipping it with this horror genre looking, dark visuals here, going from that very light visuals to these very dark.
The group must consume one of their dearest friends. And thus, Eeyore was no
Oh dear. And it's a nice little animation. Looks like a kid's drawing. It's very simple, but it's a very good way to just hook your audience immediately with setting up backstory. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual first shot of this film. Ooh. Oh, so this is supposed to be Christopher Robin. Okay.
You know, you're the first person I ever shown this place to.
And why am I so special?
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so actually this was a really good first shot. Let's actually look at how Rhys decides to open his film, because I actually think this is actually a really good first shot, especially when you're on a low budget like this. So using that crane or drone, the camera is really able to boom down and then go into that slight roll at the end there. So it goes from that wide shot to the medium shot of them having the dialogue. And then the camera at the end there just rolls slightly for the 100-acre wood. So, in one shot, really, Rhys has been able to deliver 3 different shot types in one swift movement whilst blocking his characters quite effectively as they deliver dialogue. He's used it quite efficiently, how he could get the most out of that one shot. Even when the camera has boomed down, it's motivated by the character's movements. It's dollied along with the characters walking along slowly. And really the director doing all these filmmaking elements in the opening shot like this on a very limited budget. It's actually very hard to do, especially when you're thinking, how can I get to that location? It looks like it's in the middle of a forest. And even the small details in the shot, like the smoke coming across that in that wide shot, and then that soundtrack that matches the visuals and the dialogue. So we have a very happy sounding soundtrack.
Here we are.
And then quite a mysterious sounding soundtrack towards the end of the shot. It's a really great first shot that sets up this narrative, this story. So really building anticipation like this is actually kind of cool.
Do you think I made up those stories?
No, I don't think you've made it all up. I think you were very young.
Why are we even here if you don't believe me?
Chris.
Ooh. That is so subtle. So something that could easily be missed is the way that this scene has its color temperature changed. So notice at the beginning of the scene, we have bright, vivid colors. The bright sunlight here with the colors, what we would usually expect from like a Winnie the Pooh film. And then it changes to these blacks and shadows and, more pale looking skin tones. And it gives that more thriller looking horror vibe. During a actor's delivery of dialogue, we get a shift in tone, and it's done so subtly. And I think if you were to do that between 2 scenes, it would appear really obvious, but here it's so subtle, really reinforced by like the production design now. And now we've gone to this leafless tree environment, which just looks a bit scary with the smoke coming in. So yeah, that's all really well done.
So in a way, they still exist in you.
Pooh!
That doesn't sound like Winnie the Pooh. Oh, okay, so that was pretty bad. Having a shot linger like that is too long. It lasts almost 6 seconds, which is 5 seconds too long. Every second in a film is quite vital. You've only got, maximum of 3 hours. So wasting time like that is unnecessary. It needs to have meaning and it needs to have value.
Pooh?
Oh, so this is where they all stayed, okay.
Piglet?
This is actually really cool. And it actually shows the value of sound design in low budget filmmaking. Sound is a really good tool in creating tension and shown in this particular cabin scene here. And then you get that first layer of sound from the atmosphere outside the cabin, a layer of wind hitting the cabin, and then within the cabin you've got the characters walking around, creating those creaks on that wooden floor. It's a way of really grounding us in this cabin. So these establishing shots so far are really bizarre in the way that they are being used. Like, really bizarre. It's so weird because it gives me the impression that the director has found some stock footage of some random forest. It looks very Canadian or North American. And he's just put in some creaks of the trees. And the creaking trees here don't really correlate with the visuals. It's cut to these establishing shots, which we don't need. We know we're in a forest. We don't need to be reminded of it. See, this was actually quite cool because this is something that is so important to low budget filmmaking, especially when you've only got a budget of £100,000. The director has really gone out and found a location that suits the purpose of his film. So finding a location like this one here, where you need a building that looks old and run down, having those 2 cars in front, which look placed. I don't think anyone would leave a Mitsubishi like that. I would be taking it. Covering it in leaves and foliage, and then having this garage packed with crap. So much props there which are already there. So it's lucky when you have found a location that suits your purposes. And when you do have a location like this, an advantage is having the exterior and interior interact with each other. So notice how the camera continues from the exterior into the interior. Although there is kind of a mistake, she opens the door on the left, but then the door is closed on the outside, but somehow the camera goes through the door. Clearly they've gone, okay, we need to light this atmosphere up. So they've got a big spotlight and shone it through that window. Creates that atmosphere quite well. It highlights the different props in the room. Even, again, the sounds, really good here, having that creaking door. Obviously in real life, I don't think it would make that much of a creak. It really adds to the atmosphere of the building. This is a perfect scene as an example of like, how can I approach a location in real life, redesign it for my film. Rhys here has written a scene that fits this location perfectly.
One single bug's over, you're driving me home.
This place is kind of cool.
Well, that pool's got my name written all over it.
Thought so. Come on, girls, let's get inside.
Only having 2 shots for this one scene is not enough. You need plenty of coverage. There's lots of dialogue and we feel disjointed from our characters. We're too far away from them. Use some more interesting angles than this, surely. Have the camera slightly more tighter. Have some close-ups of characters talking from the side profile. Use close-ups, anything really, to really give any sense of narrative. And really, the performances aren't terrible. It's just the way that they're framed that makes them kind of look bad. And, you know, when you're shooting on a budget like this, you have a tight shooting schedule. When I've directed scenes, you only have so long until you need to move on to the next one quickly. That's quite clear here because they've only done 2 shots. This needed a lot more shots and a lot quicker editing. And
Right,
yeah,
girls,
this
so
is
we
poorly
agree?
lit as well.
What are you doing, Mum?
Look how there's just shadow on our characters' faces. Oh god. So before this chase even begins, we hear like a crunch on branches, but that sound makes it feel like he's right next to her, but he's like a mile away. It feels like a very disjointed chase. And the main problem comes from it is not knowing the space between our two characters. There's no real shot that helps us understand how close the chaser is to our victim. Really using the environment here would have been the best case for this chase. Placing landmarks in the environment would indicate how far the chaser is to the victim. Otherwise, if we don't have that, there's no tension being made because we don't know how close he's getting. Another real fundamental issue this chase has, and it's a big one, is starting the chase from her perspective. You can sort of tell when the director has yelled action and she starts to make a run, and it kind of looks a bit weird. See where she is on the phone and spots Winnie the Pooh? Have her run and then be Winnie the Pooh's perspective, and then cut to her mid-run. It's a perfect way of just not showing her starting her run. We are already in the chase. Look how big this warehouse is. She could have run right to the back. Oh, look at the sound effects of him walking around. Oh my god, did his ears just twitch? Oh, that's a nice detail. That's a nice touch. I guess that brings me on to talking about the character of Winnie the Pooh in this film. And I think that's one of the fundamental things that you have to nail when doing one of these films. Adapting a character that is so associated with children's animation into a live action horror character, and that is something very hard to achieve on a very limited budget like this. But they nailed that straight out of the gate with that poster, which just took the internet by storm. How can he create a story around a character with such limitations? He's actually thought about the physical look, using a yellow rubber mask, using the nose, the ears, and those eyebrows are so iconic with the character. And it's just enough to make it believable that this is the same character, Winnie the Pooh. And those changes, making him into an adult, making him bigger and broader, makes it that intimidating slasher character. And that's something that you can't knock. Rhys has really knocked it out of the park with making Winnie the Pooh into an intimidating character. Another problem occurs with just drawing out a scene too much. There's no tension. Tension's just not being built. See, that is just so boring. Make it a bit more exciting. Use tighter angles. Create POV shots. Make it so that chain feels near us. Make it near the camera. The music is not enough here. You need your music to go along with your visuals. So this is something that we often see in horror genre. The victim is trying to get away from the slasher character. We see the director has made a point of looking at our character lying on the floor. There's two outcomes. The victim will be just about escape from the slasher character, or the character on the floor would just pull him out in the nick of time. We often see that in the horror genre. The director really here making a point of showing our character getting up. Oh god! Oh! That's so wrong. Oh, that's funny. I thought she was going to go grab her at the last second. Drawing out that scene for no reason then, just to kill her, is slightly odd. Tension was trying to be made, but for no reason.
What are you talking about? What's happening to y'all, huh?
It's really weird because the director has used costumes and makeup and hair that are American hillbilly-like. Using those hats and checkered shirts is something that we often associate with middle America. The pickup truck as well. For some reason, using American stereotypes with British accents and using one American. See, look how drawn out this sequence is. We spend like 3 or 4 minutes for them to even walk up to him. He does look about 8 foot for some reason. Oh, Winnie the Pooh's mad. It actually looks alright. It's pretty good for, you know, a low budget film. It feels like the film is just starting now. Who's this? That's Christopher Robin. Where's he come from? And honestly, this is where the film really should have started. Have Winnie the Pooh just chase Christopher Robin. We don't need to have this house slasher typical film. Make something different with your low budget. So yeah, really, Rhys has... Oh wow, he was the editor of this film. He edited and directed it. He's actually done quite a bit on this film then. So really, this is an interesting film because it's one of the most successful films of the year. It was a budget of £100,000, but then managed to pull in £5 million. And that is just fantastic. We've seen the slasher horror film before. We understand people in a woods in a cabin. We've seen that before. But he's put a very well-known name behind it. And in doing so has drawn in a big crowd which wouldn't have seen his film otherwise. And Rhys here really has understood how to manipulate people into watching his film. It's a product that has drawn in a big crowd, and he's found a way to get value out of that. Are really good qualities of this film that really hook the audience. The beginning had such high value filmmaking techniques. The appeal of making your film look good at the beginning. He's put a lot of money into the animation. He's put a lot of money into the opening shot. So he's really invested his audience early on, but towards the end of this film also had a very good, impactful ending. So yeah, it's really interesting to look at this film from a low budget angle. How Rhys has approached this big name with such a small budget. Now, granted, it's not millions and millions, but you got to remember this is just a small English filmmaker that has made $5 million from this film. I think this is the start of something new, something where filmmakers will now look at previous well-known characters and will start to adapt them into these new ways that we haven't seen before. I can imagine Rhys taking the profit from this film and investing in more into other projects that use very similar aspects. I think Rhys has really created something unique here. It would be the start of him creating projects like this that reinterpret characters in a new way. Regardless of the filmmaking techniques and how good they are or how bad they are, you cannot deny the success that Rhys has had here. So if you like this video, please subscribe, as I'll be doing some more reactions. Thank you for watching. Cheers.